Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to your city, your county. And today we have the pleasure and the privilege of talking with the Kewaunee County Administrator, Mark Feldt. Mark, welcome to the show.
Nice to see you, Bob.
How are things going down in Kewaunee?
It's busy. It's very busy. A lot of big projects going on, a lot of things, a lot of changes, but exciting. I mean, if everything goes the way it should, I think that you'll see new buildings, you'll see just lots of new things that is going to help transform this county. And that's going to happen the next, 2 to 3 years max. But a lot of big projects. It's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that has been exciting for me is to see those changes coming on, and Kewaunee and the whole county, Algoma, Luxembourg, Casco, all of them advancing in some ways.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited by the prospects.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. Now, that all takes money.
Correct.
Which
Lots of money.
Lots of money, which everybody is kind of watching these days. The debt, I know, is a concern. Refinancing the debt. Maybe
Yeah.
you can go into that a little
Sure.
bit.
What
for
we've
us.
done is the county right now has less than, and I know the numbers sound big, but we have to look at it in the big picture. The county has less than $10 million of outstanding debt, and that is actually maybe 11% of our total legal debt capacity. We could issue debt for tens of millions more, like about $80 million if we so wanted to, but we don't need to. But what we always try to do is we try to be good financial managers of the people's money. And so right now, there is about $3.6 million of debt that we're going to refinance. And the reason why, no different than think of your home when you want to refinance your mortgage and get a lower interest rate. We're doing the same thing here with the county. So we're going to refinance this debt at a lower interest rate. And actually, two things. One, lower interest rate. We're going to take a full year off of the debt. So instead of 10 years, it'll be 9 years. And we'll save roughly about $400,000 of interest costs. And so that's just a smart thing for us to do. Again, no different than someone owning a home where you refinance your mortgage, you get a lower interest rate, your monthly payments are less, or you pay off that mortgage that much faster. So we're doing some great stuff there. In that same respect, the other thing, and this isn't specifically refinancing, but what we're going to do is there's a new policy that if there's any money left over year after the budget, that we'll take a minimum of 10% of that, what's left, and we'll put that towards paying towards any outstanding debt. Now, what usually would happen is it would go to the general fund, and it would sit there, so that way if there were future expenses, then it could be used then. Well, what we'll do instead is we'll take a portion of that and help to pay off that debt. Why? Because then the debt gets paid off a little bit faster, and more often than not, we're paying off the debt that has the highest percentage interest rate. So again, win-win all the way across. So I'm really excited about that. We will do that April 1st. So April 1st, we'll be doing that refinancing. The county board votes that on March 17th. I don't see why it wouldn't pass. And again, I think that's a fantastic thing for the county as well as the property taxpayers of the county.
What kind of percentages are you talking about?
Less than 2%.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's much, and I can assure you that's much less than you'd pay for a house.
Correct. Less than 2%. We're looking at, because the rates are really good right now. We have a AA minus rating, but if we talk about all expenses in, the estimate is roughly about, over the course of that 9 years, about a 1.7% interest rate. So that's fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Yes, absolutely.
Do counties or other municipalities ever get to the point where they have no debt?
Very, very rarely. Very, very rarely. I know Walworth County right now has no outstanding debt. It was able to pay it off, but what happens is, more often than not, a building needs to get remodeled or a new building needs to get built. In fact, while Walworth County has no debt, in the next couple years, they're going to be redoing their administration building, so they'll have to take out debt. So taking out debt isn't a bad thing. It's just being wise about how you take out debt. Don't take out too much debt, because the interest payments you have to pay, and that makes it very difficult. You also don't want the interest rate to be too high. So debt itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's very rare for governments to be holding on to tens of millions of dollars that they could just build a building and pay it all in cash. Because then the thought is, well, why is the government holding on to all of our money?
Yes.
So that's why you usually have governments going into debt, because if they were to hold on to that much cash, they'd be open to some criticism, and rightfully so.
Sure, you bet. People would be demanding to get it back.
Correct, exactly.
Speaking of debt and new public buildings and so on, one of the things that consistently we've heard about for the last couple of years has to do with the jail and the public safety facility. Where are we in that process now?
Certainly, it's a three-phase process, and we're right about at the end of phase 2. What we've been looking at right now is we looked at a number of different options as to whether to build the facility, the buildings, on the current site at the courthouse in the city of Kewaunee, or to do it on a green site, which is actually adjacent to our administration building. The jails, the public facility working group had looked at the different options, and they've recommended to the county board that a facility be built on this green site. And part of the reason why is because of the challenges from a space and a layout standpoint if you just do it where the current courthouse is now. So there's some feeling that that's where that needs to go. Now, the bigger question really comes down to, as with anybody, is what's the cost? And the reason why is because if we're looking at a jail and the support and a sheriff's department, well, that's going to have a big price tag, of which then that will go on to the property tax bill. In that same respect, well, we're probably going to have to staff it. There's probably going to need to be more staffing. Plus, you're going to have someone clean it. So there's all these different costs. So where we're at right now is trying to put together and collect all that data to give the county board supervisors a good estimate as to what the costs may be. So that way the county board members can then decide, well, how much money are they comfortable with the county spending? Should they have that go to referendum? Or will they just issue the debt? If they're staffing, are they going to try to do that within their current budget, or are they going to try to fund that in a different way? So there's a number of those discussions happening right now. Now, the first thing you're going to ask, well, Scott, what's the numbers that you're talking about? One of the options, if you stay and you just build the housing pod where the jail would hold and some of the jail support, that you're talking roughly about 18 million plus. And then if you go to the green site, where it's the jail, all the support, as well as a new sheriff's office, there you're talking over $30 million. And so all of those have, again, a lot of zeros after them. So I'm not promoting any one option. I think this is where the county...
That's the way to be safe.
Correct. Plus, also, I'm not the one elected, so I'm not the one that makes that decision. And I believe, again, this is where we're in the process that the county board supervisors are going to need to start to have those discussions. That doesn't mean that they have to decide this month, but they do need to start having those discussions as to what they're comfortable with. Why? Because when you issue $20, $30 million worth of debt, that debt and the payments for that goes on people's property taxes. If you have to add additional staffing, those costs go on people's property taxes. So then the question comes down to is how much of an increase would that be in a person's property tax? And therefore, is that too much or is that enough? So those are all discussions that those supervisors are going to have, both our current ones, plus remember, in April, we have a brand new board. I shouldn't say a brand new board. We have new people coming on the board, including a new board chair. So all those discussions will have to take place.
Does the state regulate the way that you can raise funds? I know that with the school system and so on, you have to have a referendum. Is that true for the county as well?
No, again, it depends on what we're talking about. If we're issuing debt for a building, a majority of county board supervisors could approve the issuing of debt. So I'm just going to use the number of 20 million just for example's sake. So a majority, which would be 11 county board supervisors, if they were to vote in favor that the county take out $20 million of debt, then $20 million of debt could be taken out. They can do that. They have that authority as a board to issue debt. Now, if you have to hire 10 more staff people, well, you can't take out debt to pay for staff people. That's an operational expense, so that would have to go on the county budget. Now, if you don't have enough funds to pay for that, then you would have to go to referendum and ask the people, can we tax you more than what our usual limit is to help pay for that staff? So that would have to go to referendum.
Okay.
Or the board, if they really want to, they could do both. They could say, no, we're not going to make the vote. We're going to put the issuing of debt to a referendum as well and let the people decide as well. So the county board has options on how they would want to move forward with that.
Well, I'm glad you're here to advise us and somebody who knows what's going on with it.
It's a big decision which will have ramifications and effects for years. And the most difficult part is that our current jail is 50 years old. And if anyone were to ever tour our facility and see, and how I'd want them to do is not just to tour our facility, but then see what other counties have. And these facilities aren't brand new either. They're 10, 15, 20 years old. And even then, the difference between the two facilities is like night and day. It truly is. We're having cells that at times they don't make the parts anymore, so we have to hand make them.
Oh, wow.
if there are things that need to be fixed. So the facility, the current jail facility, is definitely outdated and definitely needs to be replaced. But how we move forward with that has to be a decision of the board.
Yeah. Now, in discussing the board, you brought up the topic that there will be a new county board chairman.
Correct.
And that there will be new board members.
Correct.
Because obviously some people aren't running. What is that going to look like?
Well, I think we have, I believe there's about five or six county board supervisors that have decided not to seek re-election, including Robert Widener, our county board chair. So you're going to have a large number, the board's only 20 people, so you're going to have a significant number of new members coming onto the board. And in that same respect, because Mr. Widener is no longer going to serve as chair, then there will be a new board chair. Once that board chair is elected by his or her peers, then comes into the work of appointing county board supervisors to the standing committees. So all of that, how that all determines is, will have a lot to say with who becomes the board chair, because then the makeups of those committees, that's where a lot of the real work is done, is at the committee level. So that will be interesting to see. Plus they'll have some big issues coming in front of them, like the jail. So they will have to then be educated as to what are the issues surrounding the jail and how do we move forward.
sounds like a lot of fun.
It will be very interesting, absolutely.
So at least you'll be there anyway.
That is the
kind
hope,
of
yes.
advise people.
That is the hope.
Okay. What about the highway shop?
Well, what we had also, while the jail is 50 years old, what some people don't realize is the main shop part, the garage, that's 80 years old.
Oh,
In fact,
that's older than you and I almost.
That is
well,
correct.
Older than me anyway.
And so what you've seen is that actually the highway shop, and some people may not understand this, this was again 80 years ago, and there's not a fire alarm system in the garage part of the shop, again, because it's been so old. So what some of the supervisors had felt is, well, we should have consultants come and take a look at the facilities and determine, do they need to be revamped? How should this all work? And so they contracted with Barrientos and Ayers to come and take a look, and it was determined that these facilities themselves are pretty outdated and should likely sometime be replaced and done. So again, some of that question is, do you do that all at its current site, which is across from Brimmer Park, or do you find a green site? Now, just to throw that into the mix, you have that along with the jail. The County Board of Supervisors is going to have to determine, do you do both projects at the same time? Do you do one over the other? How long do you wait between projects? There's all those different types of discussions that need to be looked at. And again, some of those discussions are happening, but I don't believe that the board in earnest has really had those discussions. And so when we're talking about buildings that will last for decades, those are the types of questions that the board really needs to take on and provide some guidance, because a new shop and the accompanying buildings, that itself is going to be in the millions of dollars as well.
Any chance you could incorporate the highway shop into the jail and put all of this in one location?
I would not suggest it for two different reasons. One is that a jail has specific codes and the like that need to be filled out, that need to be adhered to. And so therefore, they can't all be one building. It just makes it difficult. It's easier to separate them in that respect. Also, from a second standpoint, the location of the jail, you want to have semi-close to the courthouse because of needing to transport prisoners back and forth for court dates. And as for the highway shop, you have a lot of your trucks and plows and the like that don't need to be in the city limits. In fact, it's better that they're not in the city limits. So again, the two different locations is probably a good thing.
I know up in Door County some years ago, they built a new security system, a jail and the courts and so on, put those in one location.
Yep.
And then fairly nearby
Correct.
was the highway department.
Yep.
So it's just, using that as an example, and I'm sure there's a lot of different other counties that you can look at and say, well, this worked pretty good for these other people.
Right, and usually what most counties do is they combine their jail, sheriff's department, and courthouse, and court system. And the reason why is because, again, then you don't have to transfer. The Kewaunee County is not looking at this time to move our courts to where the jail is, again, because that would be even more added expense. So when we start to look at this type of thing, we have to look at it more in phases and in pieces. In the big picture, is it better if the courts and the jail and the sheriff's department are all co-located? Absolutely. But again, we need to look at it from a price standpoint, and maybe those things have to be done in steps as opposed to all at once.
Sure, and each county is different. Each county has different layouts, has different situations, and so on. So
Correct.
obviously, you can't just copy what some other county did. You have to come up with your own specific plan.
Right. You look at, especially from the public safety facility standpoint, you're looking at what other counties do as context, as ideas. But then you also have to look at how you operate your jail facility, how you provide the services, whether you do Huber, how do you do your courts. So you have to look at all those things together and see what works best for you as a county, not specifically copy what another county does because it may not apply specifically to Kewaunee County. You can use it as a guide, but it's always, you need to make the best decision for your county.
And I would imagine that has to do with the Brimmer Park Zoo, segueing a little bit here.
No worries.
That, it's interesting to find out about that too.
Well, and that's where, and people may not be aware of this, but the Kewaunee County Zoological Society received a Green Bay Packers Foundation grant.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they had put in an application regarding the improvements that they want to do to the Brimmer Park Zoo, and the Green Bay Packer Foundation gave the maximum, which was $7,000. And so they've done that. The Zoological Society just had a couple weekends ago Zoo Part, which raised a bunch of money. So we're trying to raise money to tear down the old bathrooms that are back from the Depression era, literally.
Even older than the county highway shop.
Correct, it is. And so literally it was a Depression era project. And so to put that and do new bathrooms and education center, as well as space for veterinary care and the like, plus we would like to have a new exhibit if possible. And what that exhibit would be, it has to do with pheasants. And you'd think, well, why pheasants? Well, for those folks that know about pheasants, there are a variety of different species of pheasant, and some are extremely colorful and beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so pheasants as birds are much easier to maintain and care for. They handle the cold weather quite well, and that would be something unique as an exhibit that you don't have for many of the other surrounding area zoos. Mm-hmm. And so therefore that would make the Brimmer Park Zoo more of a destination, in that, here are European type of pheasants, here are Asian type of pheasants, and again, some of them just have beautiful colors. And what was really interesting in researching this is what the cost is for some of these eggs, pheasant eggs. So there are eggs that you can purchase, but they'll cost you $200 to $300 for one egg.
Goodness.
So that just kind of tells you the interesting thing about these types of birds. But to do that and have this unique type of experience, well, we want to make sure that we do it right. So right now we're looking at fundraising. So whether that's community organizations, yes, we'll be applying for grants, but we also want to start sometime in the very near future kind of a community fundraising campaign to try to do more and more of these things and to raise that money and to really have a beautiful facility for people to enjoy and utilize.
Sounds like fun. Speaking of fun, what about electronics? I know that that's becoming more and more important. We hear more and more about that. And that would obviously in Kewaunee County would involve rural broadband with the grant and redesigning the county website.
Right. I'll go first with the rural broadband. In December, we had put in an application with the Public Service Commission for a broadband expansion grant. And our hope is in the next few days to hear. And if we get what we applied for, then we would receive a grant for $960,000, almost $1 million, to help improve broadband access or internet access in Kewaunee County, help to build some towers, help to provide better speed and the like. And so that could be very exciting. And that $1 million is just part of a that 960 is just part of a $2.3 million type of investment in trying to improve internet access. So we hope to keep our fingers crossed, we hope to have an answer really soon. And that would be a game changer for us if we were to get that full amount, because that would and that's just phase one, because we'd still be looking to do more and more to get us better connected. Why? because what we're learning is that broadband is like the fourth utility. Now these days, you have to have electricity in your home, you have to have water in your home, you have to have sewer in your home. Well, it's now getting to the point that those are the first three. Now broadband or internet access is just as much a necessity as those other utilities. Why? A lot of people work from home. You have streaming where you watch your movies. You have your children doing their homework. You have home-based businesses. There's a variety of different things where broadband is now part of the home decision as to whether a couple will build a home or buy a home within certain communities. So this is an important step to do that, and that doesn't even include businesses. Businesses are needing more and more broadband and data that to operate their businesses. Think of farms, think of manufacturers. That's a lot of data that they need, and they need to have that access to be able to upload and download that information. So from a broadband grant standpoint, we hope, knock on wood, that we have some really good news coming up within the next few days. Now, as for the county website, that county website has been there for, probably
less than 80 years.
Okay, I'll go with that. That's a safe one. Less than 80 years, but it's very dated. In fact, we're one of only, I think, 3 counties that still have the state that hosts our website. And because of that, that limits us a great deal. We can't put large files on. It's tough to put video and a variety of different things. So what we're going to do is we put out a request for proposal from a number of different firms. We got 6 proposals back. The executive committee did approve the recommendation to have one do that, and so hopefully in the next couple, in about a month, we'll start to have that. We'll start to do a whole new redesign and hosting of the county website. Hope to have that done by the end of the year, but then allow each of our departments to have their own page, allow more information to be able to be accessed, like the county budget, the county agendas. For that matter, we're going to look at trying to allow for payments online, as well as reservations. I think of Winter Park, which actually had a record year this year as well, is people wanting to reserve for groups. The easier way to do it then is they could go online, make that reservation, put their down payment or their reservation fee down for that, and do that at any time, not having to worry about whether the parks office is open or not. Mm-hmm. As well as that saves a lot of staff time in trying to return phone calls. So we're looking at a variety of different things that makes the county website much more beneficial to our residents, provides more information to the public, as well as is more functional for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. You know what? We've run out of time.
No worries.
Once again, it seems like it flies by, and want to thank you so much, Scott.
You're very welcome.
We've been speaking with Scott Feldt, who is the Kewaunee County Administrator. And this is being recorded on March 11th, 2020, so you can kind of follow along and see how much he said really turns out to be the case, and we hope that a lot of it does. I wish you the very best,
Thank
Scott.
you.
Thank you. And that's going to do it for our program today for your city, your county. We thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll come and see us again when we do another show. For our show today, Your City, Your County, I'm Bob Gray, and I hope you have a great day. Take care, everybody. So long.
So.